Welcome to another episode of Global Educators Unite, where educators from all over the Caribbean meet to discuss content, methodology, parent teacher relationship. Who needs to tune in? Parents, teachers, educators, aspiring educators, and anyone who wants to have informed conversations about education. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Also, if there's any topic you want us to discuss, please leave a comment below. Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of Global Educators Unite, where Jamaican educators meet to discuss all the things that we have been experiencing abroad. And as I said before, we have teachers from all over the world. Today, I have a dear friend of mine joining us, Mrs. Thomas, and Mrs. Thomas has a wealth of knowledge. She went to none other than the Sharto Teachers College, yes, my sister college, because Sharto and Michael Teachers College are sister
Yes.
brothers. And then, of course, afterwards, she went to the University of the West Indies, where she studied languages. Then she studied bilingual education at the American College of Education, and she also has a graduate certificate in languages as well at the Westfield State University. So, Mrs. Thomas, please tell us a little bit more about your educational background and where the love for foreign languages came.
Hi. I grew up in Venezuela. I went to Venezuela when I was about 8 years old.
Hmm.
Having lived born in Jamaica, grew up in Jamaica until I was 8. Went to Venezuela where I was immersed in the language because I had no other choice. It was a Spanish-speaking country, and everything was done in Spanish. All my classes were in Spanish, and so I lived in Venezuela for a number of years, and then I returned to Jamaica at about the age of 15. And I decided it was too late for me to get into the high school situation in Jamaica. And because I knew I wanted to go to college, I pretty much did all my subjects privately and took my exams where I could matriculate for college. And that is how I ended up being a trained teacher at Shorto Teachers College.
Wow, so you're a smart girl. Didn't even go to school to take the CXCs, eh? I love it.
No,
And so, when you came back from Venezuela, were you fluent?
I pretty much was because when I took my first set of exams, I actually got a 4 for CSEC English and a 1 for Spanish. And because I was the only time I spoke, I laugh at that situation every time. The only time I spoke English was when I was home with my parents. But as long as I stepped out of my house, I had to speak Spanish. I had a neighbor from Peru, I had a neighbor from Chile, and all my friends. A matter of fact, there was only one Jamaican family that we knew that had a daughter, and we could, socialize and so on. But for the most part, I was speaking Spanish. So pretty much spending those years in Venezuela made a change in my language situation because now Spanish was pretty much my native language, which replaced my native language, which was English. So pretty much Spanish became my language one and English became my language two.
And so you said you got a 1 in Spanish and a 4 in English.
A foreign English, yes. So
Interesting.
I decided that I was not because I had not gone through the formal school system. I didn't have all that I needed to be successful at the CXC English. So because I needed English to matriculate into college, I decided that I was not going to try to do the CXC again. So I did GCE English and I ended up getting a B, thankfully.
God is good. God is good. But
Yes, for the alternative.
that's very interesting. And I'm not sure because I'm not acquainted with foreign languages and learning them, but I heard the sooner you merge children into a foreign language, it's the better it is and they learn it faster as well. So that's all.
Yes, yes,
Can
that
you
is
share
very
some
true.
of Wow. Can you share some of your teaching experience with us?
Um, well, because I was fluent in Spanish, I actually started teaching when I was about 17 prior to going to college. At that time, I did not know what I wanted to be. I was, I think I wanted to become an air hostess because it was the thing at the time and having
All
the
of us
knowledge of
used to be.
Spanish.
All of us
Yes,
wanted
I
to
wanted to be
be.
a flight attendant. Yes, I thought it was the ideal job. So I started teaching like at um, private schools, preparatory schools. I had a job at the language training center that was located in New Kingston at the time. And then when I got into the public system, my first public system job was at Mona High School in 1993 to 1995. And then at the time, the principals, the system did not allow for pre-trained teachers to remain in the system for any long time. So after spending 2 years there, I was not able to continue. So I decided that, it seemed like teaching is something that I can do. So I advertised myself in the Daily Gleaner, in the Sunday Gleaner, and the principal, Reverend Dr. Gordon Cohens, called me and I interviewed in November of 1995 and I got the job and started. I left Kingston and was living on campus. And so I remember one day the then assistant principal, Mrs. Hyacinth Baker, she asked me, why don't you go to college? It's like I never even thought about going to college and be trained because I was making money. So I wasn't, thinking about that. And she asked me that question and it resonated with me. And I decided that why not? And I applied to one institution, which was Shortwood Teachers College. That's the only institution I applied to. So if they turned me down, I would probably have to do another application somewhere else. And so I went to college 1999 to 2002. And I remember when I was getting ready to go to college and I had a staff meeting and I was thanking the principal for believing in me and giving me this opportunity at Knox College High School to teach as a pre-trained teacher. And so many people were shocked because I guess based on how I conducted myself, and I had a very good head of department, Miss Jelita Lewis. She taught me how to, write lesson plans. And it was the same thing too at Mona High School. I had a very good head of department. So they taught me how to write lesson plans and how to impart lessons and so on. I didn't have upper school because I was not trained. So I didn't get like a CXC class. I pretty much dealt with 7 to 9, and then another time they gave me a 10th grade. And so a lot of people were surprised that I had not gone to college based on how I carried myself. And this was very surprising that they decided that they were going to hire me permanently and send me to college. So my position would be there when I returned to Knox College after being trained for 3 years. And I went to college and I was very successful. And I returned to Knox College just to, you know, to pay back the fact that they hired me as pre-trained. Now that I was trained with more knowledge, more expertise, I felt that I owed them that. So I stayed with them from 2002 until 2006 when I went to Bishop Gibson High School.
Okay, and did was Bishop Gibson High School in the same parish or?
No, Knox College, not very far away. Knox College is basically on the border. So Knox College is in Spalding's Clarendon, and Bishop Gibson is in the heart of Mandeville, Manchester.
Okay.
So
Hmm.
so after I started working when I got the job at Bishop Gibson High School, I was hired on the spot without board approval. And so I remember when I got the job, the teacher that was there prior to me, she was very good, and I had some big shoes to fill. And this was my first time getting the experience to teach CXC because the teacher was responsible for upper school and CXC. So I was thrown into something that was totally new to me. But God was good, and I was very much equipped with my training and experience. And believe it or not, once I started with my upper school students, and I also had lower school students, but my focus was taking students to, the CXC level. And believe it or not, from I was there 2006 to 2014 when I migrated to the US, all the students that I sent up to sit the Spanish examination were successful. I got 100% pass every year from 2006 to 2014. And this is very important to me because the last year while I was there, 2014, all the students that I sent up, which was about 35 thereabout, all of them got ones and twos. I never got a three out of those students. So I left, in a
Left
high. I
the
left with a
legacy,
bang.
left the
Yes,
legacy. Oh my gosh, Jamaica lost one of its best.
yes, that
So
is
tell
true. And I think
us a little
I
bit.
was able to I was able to do a greater job with my students because I was also an oral examiner for CSEC. So I would go around to the different schools
Oh,
and conduct the oral aspects of the Spanish exam. So that experience helped me to train my students on what to do and what not to do when they sat the oral aspect of their exam.
wow, that's awesome. So tell me a little bit about your teaching experiences now in the US.
Well, one of the things that I had to do quickly, I had to learn really, really fast because coming from a traditional high school where I had students who challenged me. Like I've had students that I've taught who are now lawyers and doctors. And so when I went into that class to teach, especially upper school, I had to have my knowledge
Right.
ready to
Right.
impart, ready, because if I made a mistake, there would be somebody to tell me that that's not how this is done, and so on. So coming here, I pretty much had to take a lot of steps backwards in how I impart knowledge. I realized that in a given situation back home, I could go to a class with 5 objectives and they would be accomplished. And I remember I came here with the same mentality and I would have, say, 3 objectives. And at the end of the class, maybe one of them was met. So I have had to go at a slower pace. I've had to um, impart information in smaller portions. I've had to have one-on-one with students, make sure that I am walking around. And if they have 10 things to do, I am walking around to each and every student to make sure that the spelling is right, the grammar structure is right. So I have had to teach like I am teaching lower level um, students. I cannot go there with a fast pace. I have to take it one class at a time, then, review what happened in a particular class and decide if I need to do some more revision before I actually take them to an assessment activity.
Wow. And I do know what you're talking about. The mentality is somewhat different. It's different.
Yes,
And you have to teach in chunks here. It's not like,
yes,
you can go with this and you say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And you have a bomb class.
no, no.
All right, so that those are some good nuggets for our future educators as well. And what would you say to few or young teachers who want to teach abroad or have a dream of teaching out of Jamaica, what would be your advice to them?
All right, my advice is that you have to understand that anywhere you go outside of Jamaica, you have to be ready to understand that there are cultural differences. And when I tell you I am still learning, but the cultural differences, that is something that you have to be conscious of. A lot of having conversations with many Jamaican teachers and other teachers like from the Philippines and some Hispanic countries is like they expect the same thing when they leave their home country to come to the US. And that is the first mistake that you're going to make because you are coming with a preconceived notion of how things are supposed to be. And if you do that, you are going to be in some serious problems and you are not going to be an effective teacher. So the first thing you have to know about the teaching and learning culture in the United States of America. You have to know what will work in a classroom in the United States as against what will not work. Because at the end of the day, Jamaica is Jamaica and the United States is the United States. And you may come expecting, oh my God, I'm coming to a first world country. The students are, no, you have to come and experience. And once you experience it, then you can create your lessons accordingly. And it also helps to talk to teachers who have been here. It doesn't necessarily have to be your coworker. It can be your coworker, but it can also be other teachers who've been here and who have had the experience that you don't have, because it is through experience that you are going to be the most effective teacher that you can be. You could be very knowledgeable, but because of your cultural experience of Jamaica and your ignorance of what happens in a classroom in the United States of America, those things can cause you to fail as an educator, moving from your homeland to the United States as a teacher.
Wow, very sage advice. So, what are some of the strategies that you use to deal with classroom discipline?
Um, I believe in setting my pace because that is something that I struggled with when I came here because I was at a school that was very
Advanced.
rough. Yeah, no, the school was very rough in terms of the demographics, low socioeconomic class students did not value education. So the classroom was a very chaotic place. And I had to learn really, really quickly how to manage my class. So over the years, I'm no longer at that school, I'm at another school. And what works for me is I set my standard from day one. The first day when they come into my class, they know what time it is. And there is no opportunity for downtime,
You have to keep them
especially on the
busy. Keep them
yes,
busy.
no, keep them busy. And so when you come and you the first day of class and you get that parent letter, student parent letter, you're gonna read it. I give you some time to read it, and then you take it home to read with your parents, and you come back the next day and we discuss this letter. So once they decide to get out of that, I remind them that you signed that you would do this and you would not do that. And consistency is very important. You cannot be a disciplinarian today and then you slack off tomorrow, because that's what students want. If they know they can get away with something, they're gonna do it, they're gonna try it, because that's what teenagers do. So I make sure that when my students walk through my door, there is work for them to do. There is structure. I believe in structure. So they come in, they have their bell work, they know that this is what they're going to do after the bell work. This is what they're going to do after activity number 2. So I do not give my students time to be in discipline because they are busy. And one of the things that helps me is walking around and checking work, making sure that they are on task. And when I realize that they are engaging in conversations. I call their names and I let them know that I'm seeing you, I'm looking at you, I'm watching you, I am onto you. So my classroom is a very busy space, and that is what works for me. I keep them busy and I am involved in what is going on a daily basis.
And this was something that you had to learn coming over here, right? Because in Jamaica it wasn't the same, right?
No, 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 it was not the same. Students were seated, teacher was at the desk, and students did work, and we would collect the books and grade the books afterwards. And also because I'm dealing with a different level of students. So it means that the students, they need more monitoring than my students back home. So like something that is very simple that you would assume that they would understand, you would walk around and you realize that they are making mistakes. So it has to do with the level of the student. They cannot work independently for too long. So if I am not interacting with them, chances are at the end of the activity, they have 80% of the assignment done incorrectly. So I realize that as long as my presence is felt around the room, they feel comfortable to ask me questions and they feel motivated to stay on task because they want that sticker that I will put in their book, or that stamp or that check mark, because I may go around and I'm checking and checking. So everybody is gonna be focused on what they have to do so they don't have time to be in discipline. I hardly write referrals for disciplinary infractions. And I find that because I use that strategy, my students don't get enough window to get into any kind of disciplinary issues like fighting or any other kind of indisciplined behavior.
So tell us a little bit about your parent-teacher interaction. Do you have any problematic parents, or any parents that you find combative? How do you handle those situations? Or when you have to call home to say something negative, how do you approach that?
Yes, I've had a few combative parents, and I had a very good assistant principal who taught me how to have that conversation. And I remember Dr. Carter Blocker, she said to me, please, I need your help. I need your support. I'm calling because I need your help and I need your support to help your child to be successful. So even if it is negative, I usually start off with that, and I usually find something positive to say about the child. The child is a warm person. He or she gets along well with his or her peers. We have a good relationship, but this child needs to focus more in class and turn in assignments on time and stuff like that. So I find that when I get on that phone and I have some positive news to give before I talk about the negative, it is usually better received by the parents.
That is awesome. Now, this is the time for you to brag on yourself. So tell me something that, because we know our environment that we work in, as I say all the time, and sometimes we do some things and we don't get recognition for it. So brag on you now. Tell me some things that you have done over the years that, you remember, you sit back and you're like, whoa, I did that. So tell me some things that Mrs. Thomas have done that you want to brag about.
All right, this is what I want to brag about. I love Spanish. When I tell you my love for Spanish is endless. And there are two things that I've exposed my students to. And since 1996, I have been taking students to Spanish-speaking countries. My first trip was to Venezuela in 1996, and then I took some students to Panama. I took some students to Cuba, Mexico, Costa Rica, and all of those trips took place in Jamaica, taking students from Jamaica, from Knox College High School and from Bishop Gibson High School. I Since I've moved here, I've tried to have that, but the pandemic came and that kind of, slowed things down. But I was very fortunate to have my first trip to Costa Rica last year, June, where I took about 3 students to Costa Rica. And this year, I am planning to take about 5 to Peru in June of this year. And this is the first time anybody had ever done such a thing from my school district. So that was a milestone for me. And I am very proud of myself for having taken on the challenge to organize the trip and to execute it, and everything was perfect. Everything went perfect, and the students were very excited and they enjoyed the fact that they were able to experience another country and its culture outside of the United States of America.
Yeah, because I was just going to say that a lot of them have never been out of their
No,
little.
they have never been out of their little neck of the woods. And I have students who are now adults and they're my friends, and they will talk about that Panama trip, because we used to go to Panama because it was geographically um closer, and it was one of the countries that was not as expensive. Like we could go to Panama for like a week for like $1,000 with all expenses covered back then. And I have students who talk about those trips, and that was one of their first trips that they ever took outside of Jamaica. So those are lifelong experiences that they would cherish. And I'm sure they continue to talk about it, because we've had conversation where they talk about it. And the other thing is, I am very good at salsa dancing, and I always like to expose my students to not just the uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, seis, but also the food and the culture that surrounds these countries. And I remember planning a trip to Junkuno Lounge with people's children and taking them to, well, it wasn't Junkuno Lounge at the time because they were not there anymore. I think it was at the Paul's on Trafalgar Road in Kingston, the Paul's building. That's where it was. And I took some students, I'm talking about
When I was in Jamaica at the
late
salsa dancing night, yeah.
Yes, late at night. So the parents dropped them off and we got in a bus and we went, and they learned to salsa, they learned to merengue, and we went on back home to Mandeville. And that was a beautiful experience for them to get to see authentic salsa dancing, because that is something that takes place in Kingston pretty much every week. And you'd be surprised to know how many Cubans were gathered there week after week, getting a taste of their culture away from home. So those are two things: exposing my students to authentic Spanish culture, and creating memories that they will cherish for a lifetime.
I wish you were my Spanish teacher, 'cause my Spanish teacher really liked me in high school. So at least I would have had some fun. But Miss Thomas,
Yes.
thank you so much for joining us today on another episode of Global Educators Unite. Thank you from the bottom of my heart and for taking the time, because I know you're a busy woman. So thanks for taking
Yes,
the
I
time.
make
Thanks for taking
listen,
the
no
time.
busy. I make time for you, my friend, and I am thankful for this platform, because as educators, our voices need to be out there to encourage, because there are so many negativity surrounding teaching, especially overseas. But as long as you have that passion for teaching and reaching any child, it does not matter where you are placed, you are going to shine bright like a diamond, and you are going to make that mark, and you are going to have that lifelong impact on even if it is on one student. As long as I'm able to reach one at a time, no paycheck is as big as me reaching one student at a time. So I am happy that you invited me on this platform, and I pray that you will get many more educators who will be willing to share their experiences so others who are thinking about becoming a teacher will have some form of motivation and encouragement. So I would not have missed it at all for the world. And I thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us this evening to share some of your experiences in the profession of all professions, the most rewarding but least compensated, wouldn't you say?
Yes, I agree.
And to my viewers, thank you for joining us on another episode of Global Educators Unite, where educators meet to discuss content, methodology, parent teacher relationship. And of course, if you're a teacher, want to be a teacher, parents, anybody who wants to have intelligent conversations about education, this is the platform for you. Do enjoy. Thanks for joining us. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Bye.
Bye.